Hello, everybody. I apologize for not having my review of Extreme Rules posted, but life got in the way again, and that's a thing that happens. I'm having yet another one of those shitty weeks. Can't wait for Memorial Day. I cannot fucking wait for Memorial Day weekend. I get a 4-day weekend because I'm actually taking Friday off too, so it's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be fucking great. It's gonna be something to be happy about. It's gonna be wonderful. It's gonna be great. But yeah. So, I mean, Extreme Rules has already come and gone, so doing a full-fledged review would be kind of a waste at this point. But, my basic impressions of the show, it was actually pretty solid. I actually enjoyed it. It was one of WWE's better pay-per-views in a while. I really liked the main event because it was wild and chaotic and just crazy. I mean, AJ and Roman just went out there and, like, did every fucking crazy thing you could possibly imagine. Some of it went a little too far, like Roman kicking out of two Styles clashes, one on a steel chair. It's like, alright, so Styles clash doesn't mean anything anymore, right? I was like, okay. But, yeah, I mean, some of the stuff they did with the announce tables and some of the bumps that AJ took and some of just the general insanity of the whole thing made for a really wild and chaotic match. Which was fun. And the return of Seth Rollins was great. I thought was a nice little thing to end the show on. It kind of made up for the disappointment of Roman keeping the title. It was better than just, the Cena style of hold the belt up and fade to black, and you get that 45 times in a row, and then you want to, put a gun in your mouth and pull the trigger. But, no, I thought the main event was very good. I thought the 4-way IC title match was very good. Very great action-packed match. All four guys just were bound and determined to go out there and have a hell of a match on the undercard. Most of the rest of the undercard was at least solid. Probably the only two downers on the show were the Asylum match, which did not work. I mean, yeah, alright, major credit to Jericho for taking a bareback thumbtack spot. I mean, there's not enough goddamn money on this planet to get me to do that, but, it wasn't, the match itself was not good. It was just kind of very clunky, awkward gimmick match. It was like a TNA gimmick match. And not as bad as, like, some of TNA's worst, like the electrified cage or anything like that, but it was just very clunky, awkward, and just had no heat up until, like, the last minute or so. It was like Batman v Superman. I'm gonna keep making fun of that movie. I need to stop. But anyway, yeah, I wasn't a fan of the Asylum match, and the women's submission match didn't click. I really didn't like that they sold the match on there will be no outside interference and there's finally going to be a fair fight between the two, and then they ended the match with outside interference and it made Natalya look like kind of an idiot. And I was just like, okay, so they did that fluky, stupid bullshit. I don't know, it came off very awkwardly, didn't work. I really liked Charlotte's segment the next night on Raw when she dumped Rick and kicked him to the curb and everything. I thought that was heartbreaking and emotional, and I was like, and I like it when wrestling can do stuff like that. So, good character development for Charlotte. I think adding Dana Brooke to her is completely pointless, but I would have liked it more if she'd just beaten Natalya straight up and then felt like she could kick Flair to the curb. But anyway, I mean, overall, Extreme Rules was a pretty solid show. Overall, again, except for those two little mishaps. Raw this week also, not too much to write home about, but the Money in the Bank match is shaping up kind of well. I mean, the guys that have gotten into the match, it's Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Cesaro. Was there one more that got in? I think Jericho got in, which whatever. I think Ambrose got in. I think that's it. But, yeah, overall, good list for the Money in the Bank match, and hopefully that match turns out well, because now that we're getting full swing into that. We've got Rollins versus Roman for the title, which I hope Rollins goes over, because I don't want... It's like, what? It's just everybody comes in and just gets fed to Roman right away. And, yeah, kudos to everybody who's, like, tweeted to me or posted comments on the videos and stuff and said that Cena will be the one to dethrone Rusev for the U.S. title. And I hear an ice cream truck out there. I could really go for some ice cream right now, but I'll wait. Anyway, yeah, kudos to all you people, because now that I'm looking at the scenario, I'm like, oh my god, they're completely right. That's exactly what's going to happen. So, on Memorial Day, Mr. USA is coming back, and he will beat Rusev for the U.S. title. And I'm like, if they actually, because I'm just looking at everything on paper, and it looks like something that they would do. And I'm like, if they actually do that, I will laugh and cry at the same time, because it's just like, of course they would do that. Of course. It's like, who cares? Who gives a shit about Rusev? It's like, who gives a shit? He's fucking worthless. But, Cena, you gotta keep feeding the Cena train. If they do that, I'll laugh my ass off. It'll be hysterical. But it'll also be kind of sad. Yeah, so that's Raw and Extreme Rules, basically in a nutshell. Hopefully that review will cover mostly everything and give everybody my thoughts on the show. If you followed me on Twitter the night of the show, you know what my impressions were, so no use really, and you know what I thought. So, yeah, I did enjoy it. A couple of other things that came up. One big thing that came up today, Cody, but a couple of days ago, I guess I should bring this up as well. Cody Rhodes got asked for his release from the WWE, and I just love the statement that he released on Twitter. It basically said all the things that I've been saying about Cody for years. He's the chicken shit into chicken salad or chicken soup type of guy, where he took everything they ever gave him and did his damnedest to try and make it work. And if it did work, they pulled the rug out from under him. I don't understand that, but Cody's one of those guys I look at and I just go, what the hell does he have to do? I mean, whose dick does he have to suck to get on? Because I'm looking at Cody and I'm looking at the effort he puts in everything and the quality of his work. And the stupid gimmicks he got, like, okay, one that didn't work, that I personally felt like wasn't in Cody's skill set. Undashing Cody Rhodes, I didn't think was really good for him, because he's supposed to be like more of a quiet, kind of a Raven-type psychopath. Not entirely like Raven, but kind of cut from that same cloth. And I don't think that Cody is like, I don't think that's his temperament. I don't think that's his personality. I don't think, it didn't feel natural when he was doing it. But he did his damnedest to try and make it work. Dashing Cody Rhodes, I thought that was going to be a disaster because it felt like a step back. And he made that work to the best of his ability, and then they pulled the rug out from under him by forcing him to be undashing Cody Rhodes, which went against his skill set. Stardust, he had a great debut. People seem to forget that. When they debuted him as Stardust, it was like, oh, okay, let's see if he can make this into something. It looked like it was going to be good. They never defined the character, never gave it any kind of meaty material beyond the Stephen Amell thing, and even that wasn't that great. But Cody just had to go out there and do what he was told, and he made it work to the best of his ability, but it's, didn't work. And through no fault of his own. It was just creative, didn't give him anything. Other things, like his IC title run, and I went on giant rants about this at the time, but him losing the IC title to Big Show at WrestleMania was one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. I was like, alright, you've got Cody, he's the IC champion, he's doing really well, he's building up his heat, he's coming off like a perfect asshole by using Big Show's WrestleMania history to humiliate him. Cody should walk out of Mania with the title. If you want to have him lose by DQ, fine. But Big Show should not be ending this title reign. Cody needs to keep the title and then move on to bigger and better things, to keep his heat, and they just insisted on Big Show going over, which I knew was coming, but they did it anyway. And it was a terrible decision and derailed Cody Rhodes once again. Actually, and I know I've made this point before, but the match they had in Extreme Rules the month after that was actually like the match they should have had at WrestleMania, where Cody kind of stole the win, and then Big Show beat him up after the match. And it was like, why couldn't they just do that at Mania? I don't understand why because Big Show needed his WrestleMania moment, whatever the fuck that means. But, yeah, forget about the future. No, we always live in the now. You can't be thinking 2-3 steps ahead. That's crazy. But yeah, I could use other examples as well, like Legacy, which should have been really good for both him and Ted, but when you get fed to the DX meat grinder and you get made to look like incompetent chumps aligned with the big baddie, which was Randy Orton, they were no Evolution, and the reason for that is that they were not booked the way Evolution was. Evolution was booked to actually dominate. Legacy was not, so they looked like a joke, and what should have been a great thing for Cody amounted to very little for him in the long run. The other thing, like his tag team run, I referenced Stardust, but his tag team run with Goldust and their whole angle with the Shield and that whole feud and everything was wonderful. Great stuff. And I remember that. The Rhodes brothers, they were the sympathetic favorites. They were the crowd favorites. Goldust was working better than he had in years. Cody really won over a lot of fans. Then they turn around and just give the fucking belts to the New Age Outlaws, and then Cody and Goldust are left with nothing. It's like, well, fucking hell, man. It's... I mean, what the fuck do you do? And Cody's not the only guy that this has happened to. I mean, this has happened to a ton of guys. Wade Barrett, I mean, I did not like Wade Barrett when he was with Nexus. I didn't like him, in his earlier years because I thought he's kind of bland, and I'm not really seeing any kind of obvious greatness there until he got the bad news gimmick, which by all rights should have been a failure, but he managed to get it over. He got his catchphrase over. He got the shtick over. Sometimes it was really entertaining and funny. And they said, he's getting cheered. We got to pull the plug on him. I'm like, why can't he just be a babyface? Why can't Bad News Barrett just be a babyface? If it's funny and the fans are liking it, just let him. You wouldn't do that to New Day because that's stupid. I mean, it's like, why kill what's working? It's like, no, we're gonna make him King Barrett and make him the king of the ring because that always works for people. Yeah, and we're going to take away everything that people like about him. It's like, thank you for that. But yeah, I mean, I could sit here all day and list examples, but Cody is just one of those guys, always gave 110%, and unfortunately always had the rug pulled out from under him. I don't understand it. It makes no sense to me. I'm not saying Cody would be my world champion if I had a roster, but he would be a major mainstay on my roster without any doubt. I was like, because Cody can make almost anything work, can work well with just about anybody, has a personality, has a lot of great natural gifts. Use it. I mean, yeah, it's like, at the very least, I could use Cody to make other guys look like $1 million that aren't that great, and keep Cody in a high-profile position and make him a star in the meantime. So, I mean, there's plenty of things that you could do with Cody and make him work, but they just didn't want to. They didn't want him to have any momentum. I don't understand it. It's almost like they're anti-making money with guys. I don't know. They're not. They're a very money-driven company, but when they do things like that, it's like, do you even care, like, where you're going to be in 10 years? It's crazy. But there's a part of me that thinks that Vince thinks he could put the belt on just about anybody he wants. So that's why I'll put it to whoever I want to put it on because, it's like, doesn't matter. They're going to watch anyway. And I think that's part of his attitude, but oh well. So yeah, that's my take on the whole Cody Rhodes thing. It's unfortunate, but just like Damian Sandow, it's unfortunate, but I mean, when you keep polishing turds and they still don't seemingly respect you, I mean, what do you do, So yeah, that's the end of the Cody Rhodes discussion. Also, major thing that broke out today, that's definitely worth talking about. Apparently WWE is going to institute another brand split. SmackDown will be going live in July, I believe I read. And we're going to go back to having Raw and SmackDown as separate brands. Now, I have a lot of mixed feelings on this. Probably more on the negative side. Not to sound like a dick, but I just have a few concerns about doing this whole thing. I mean, I know they want to shake up the show and they want to liven things up again. And if they can make SmackDown a worthwhile show again, great. Because right now it's just Raw Jr. And there's really, outside of Mauro Ranallo's commentary, there's really no reason to give a shit about SmackDown. And I know I've made that point before. And I'm not saying you don't get good matches once in a while. It's just that after when they constantly tell you that Raw is the top show and it's the big spectacle every week, and they ask you to then tune in 3 days later and watch a lesser version of it, it's just kind of like, what's the point? And, storylines don't develop the same way that they do on Raw, and by not developing in the same way, I mean hardly at all. And anything on SmackDown that's of merit gets replayed on Raw anyway, so why even bother, It's like, there's really no reason. I haven't watched SmackDown in like 5 weeks. I haven't missed a goddamn thing. I really do feel like I've been able to follow the storylines. I've been able to follow everything that happens. It's just, it hasn't impacted my ability to follow WWE programming. So if they want to do something to liven up SmackDown and make it matter, or possibly even give us not. How do I want to phrase this? The WWE has so much content that if, let's say, I mean, I hate to phrase it like this, but let's say Raw continues to be a bucket of shit and SmackDown gets really good again, because there were points where SmackDown was the better show, and then, they inevitably ruined it, but 2009 definitely comes to mind, but say it's like SmackDown gets really good and Raw turns into shit, it's like, well, I don't have to waste my Monday nights, 3 hours or whatever. I can just watch SmackDown and be okay with WWE programming. But other than that, there's a few concerns I have about actually doing the brand split. I hope to God, and I know they're going to, just to piss me off, but I hope to God they don't have two world champions. I like having one world champion. I think it's more important to have one number one top guy, even if it's Roman Reigns. And I know a lot of us hate Roman, but to me, it's like having two world champions just lessens the importance of actually being a world champion. A lot of times the World Heavyweight title felt like a pity belt or like a cheap way to placate the internet fans. That's why Daniel Bryan got the world title right before, what was that, WrestleMania 28? Right, so like the months before that, leading into that show, it's like that's why he got the world title, because they just wanted to placate the internet fans without actually giving him the real big belt, which is the WWE title. So it's like, yeah, we made Daniel Bryan a world champion. It's like, yeah, but it's the shitty world title that nobody cares about. And then he got a 30-second match at WrestleMania. So it was like, and there was a lot of stuff like that. And other times they'll just give the belt to somebody just as a lark. Like, that's how Jack Swagger got it. That's how Miz got it before Miz was, like, worth anything. I mean, that's harsh, but, I mean, like, without being appropriately built up, like Miz was made into a world champion. Del Rio was made world champion, and I've made it perfectly clear that in WWE, Del Rio does not work for me. I don't know what it is, but it's only in WWE. Everywhere else, he's fine. It's just in WWE where he just doesn't. He's boring as fuck. I'm sorry. And he was like a 3 or 4 time World Heavyweight Champion. And there was a lot of guys like that. Great Khali won the World Heavyweight title because reasons. And it also lent itself to guys winning 14 and 15 World Heavyweight titles and just making that whole statistic a mockery. It's like, who gives a fuck? I mean, even Edge, who held like 10 or 11, I was like, he might as well be 100 at this point. I mean, who cares? And just devalued what it means to actually win a world title, because it made it twice as easy to get opportunities to win one and twice as easy to actually win a world title. So, there were cases where guys would lose going for one world title and then immediately go for the other one. No Way Out 2009, great show, but Edge literally lost one belt and then was able to win the other one by the end of the night. It's that easy. And if it's easy, then you feel kind of, if it's easy to win, then why should I care? It's like, no, I want it to be difficult. I want the journey. I want, to feel like, these guys are like fighting tooth and nail to win this thing. And if there's only one world title, that makes it twice as hard to get, and that makes the journey all the more satisfying or more worthwhile. Anyway, it's like, it's not easy to keep gunning for this thing, so you gotta take your opportunities when they come. And I remember thinking a lot of time, it's like, oh, you didn't win the Royal Rumble? Better luck next year. That's it. And under the 2 world title system, it's like, all right, somebody won the Royal Rumble, who's going for the other world title? It's just kind of like, you didn't... It just created way too many opportunities for shitty world champions and too many opportunities for guys to be put into world title situations when, it just, and like I said, it devalues the importance of being a world champion. Now, it wouldn't be as bad if they were able to get brand split pay-per-views to work. If they could get Raw and SmackDown to a point where they can support their own pay-per-views and both brands are truly separated, except for like WrestleMania, SummerSlam, and the Royal Rumble. And even then, I'd be like, wouldn't it be cool if they had like some kind of a, like they somehow had Raw and SmackDown fight over who gets to actually have the Royal Rumble match or something like that? Make interpromotional competition actually mean something. It's like, all right, if let's say they do bragging rights again, which that was one of the lamest pay-per-view concepts they ever did, because nobody gave a shit about Raw versus SmackDown at that point. Because that was another thing. Guys were switching back and forth between the brands so frequently. It's like, it was so hard to think of anybody as like strictly a Raw guy or a SmackDown guy, because they switch back and forth all the time, so who cares? Obviously, you had guys like Edge, you thought of as more of a SmackDown guy. Cena was more of a Raw guy. Triple H more of a Raw guy. JBL's and Ray, Eddie were more SmackDown guys. But other than that, the line, especially like when you get into 2008, 9, 10, 11, the line got blurred so much that it just didn't really matter anymore. And they never officially ended the first brand split. They just kind of slowly phased it out until nobody cared anymore. And that's kind of, I don't think they ever had a moment where they specifically said that the brand split is over. They just, after a while, they did the Raw Super Show in 2011, where SmackDown guys would appear on Raw, and then slowly after that, they just kind of worked it into having just, basically just one brand again. So, yeah, there's a lot of things to worry about there, especially how you handle your champions. I would, in addition to the world title, that whole situation, I would also consider, with the women's and the tag titles, since they're so division specific, I say either allow the tag champs and the women's champ to appear on both shows, or have all the women on one show and all the tag teams on one show, and just let the brands kind of be defined by their own specialty division. Because I remember what it was like when they tried to have 2 tag team divisions, and it was ridiculous. Because they had like 5 fucking tag teams, and they were split across 2 shows with 2 sets of tag belts. And I'm like, that's fucking ridiculous. My God, man. That's spreading your division way too thin. And with the women's title, it was kind of the same thing, where you had, for a while, you had the women's title and the Divas title, and it was split across 2 shows, and neither division felt big enough to support one title, so why not just, like I said, because divisions have to feel like there's a lot of depth, and they, that the competition for it is stacked, and you can't do that if you split it in 2 and have the 2 sides each go after their own title, because it's just, you're spreading your resources a little too thin there. So with the women's and tag titles, I would say, either let the champions appear on both shows or keep the divisions entirely on separate shows. Just to get, like, let's say SmackDown is the tag team show, Raw is the women's show, and we'll, and just let both brands have their own identity from there. Other thing, IC and US title, I would make them the brand-specific championships. Let like the IC title be the Raw title and the US title be the SmackDown title or something like that, which is kind of what they had going there for a while. But with 2 world champions, that whole thing gets thrown out the window. So it's like, all right, let's have like a clear division. You have the world title, which appears on both shows, and you can even have inter-promotional competition where Raw and SmackDown fight over who gets to challenge the world champion next, and then from there you decide which brand representative gets to go after the world title or something. I mean, there's plenty of ways you can do this. So have one world title that appears on both shows. Then you have the 2 brand-specific championships, would be the IC and the US title. So you have a clear hierarchy there. It's like, all right, so you have the company champion, and then each brand champions, and then each divisional champions, which would be the women's title and the tag titles. And then just figure that out whichever way you want. So I'm really worried about how they're going to handle all their belts. And actually, to throw more of, to explain my fears about the tag division even more, I remember what happened when they first did the brand split, and they basically split up all their tag teams. The Hardy Boys got moved onto Raw, which was away from the tag titles, I believe, initially. I don't know, they switched things around so much. But basically, the Hardy Boys were separated from the tag titles. The Dudley Boys were split up. The APA was split up. The World's Greatest Tag Team was split up. And before you knew it, I remember the April pay-per-view after the brand split. The tag title match was Rikishi and Rico versus Billy and Chuck. And I was like, what the fuck? That is pitiful. That is so pathetic that's your tag division now. Because they split up all their tag teams that didn't have a plan. And I'm worried they're going to do that again here, where they split everybody up and they either split up all the tag teams, or they have the tag titles on one show, and you have certain tag teams that are separated from the tag titles, which makes no sense, but they actually did that to the Hardy Boys initially. Or they go back to having two sets of tag titles, which is just obnoxious. So, and splits the division in half, and makes the titles seem less important, and makes the division as a whole seem less important. And hopefully they put enough thought into making that work, and hopefully they've got this all mapped out and they know what they're doing. But yeah, and some people say, I'm just happy to see my favorite guys get a belt. And I'm like, well, I mean, I like my favorite guys to get belts that matter. So, and I like to actually care, and because that was one of the things that WCW had back in the day, is that their roster was so fucking huge. I mean, their cruiserweight division could have been its own show. That's how many guys they had. So if one of your favorite guys got a title shot, it actually felt like a big deal, because title shots didn't come as easily. Because the roster was so fucking huge and stacked that even getting a shot at the TV title felt like a big deal. And that's hard to do if you split your roster in half and then you don't handle the championships correctly. And that's actually another concern I have. Is the roster big enough to split into two? Some people have said that they can move up some guys from NXT. My comment is they already moved up a bunch of guys from NXT. I mean, NXT's running out. They're kind of running out of guys right now. So, I mean, they've got Aries and Nakamura, Joe, and Balor, who's probably not going to be there too much longer. There's not a whole lot that they've got. I mean, they've got Gargano and Ciampa. They've got... I just listed a handful of guys that they still have. Look at the guys that got moved up. Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens almost a year ago, so that almost doesn't count. But Sami Zayn, Tyler Breeze, the Vaudevillains, Enzo and Cass, who else was I thinking? Apollo Crews, just a bunch of guys got moved up in a heartbeat. And they lost a good chunk of change there, and so NXT already kind of got bled thin a little bit. And, you can only move so many guys back up to the main roster. So, I don't know. Splitting the roster in two after some releases and after already kind of pillaging NXT and moving certain guys up, it might be a little hard. It might be hard. So, hopefully they have that in mind. Hopefully they're able to fill out both rosters, and hopefully they're able to get this to work. Again, if they do this right and correctly, it could be fine. If they do it with the intention of making SmackDown mean shit anymore, again, that's fine. But I remember a lot of the times back in the day where they horribly mismanaged the brand split. And, the shows need to be clearly defined and they need to be truly separate in a lot of ways. If you can get to a point where both shows are able to sustain brand split pay-per-views, by all means do it. But again, that's very hard to do if you split your roster in half. So, it's going to be tricky. Hopefully they plan this out well, and hopefully they know what they're doing. I imagine the way they're going to explain it on TV is that Shane and Stephanie can't work together, and then one ends up ruling Raw and the other one ends up ruling SmackDown, and that's how it's going to work out. But again, we shall see. But yeah, those are basically all my comments on it. Basically everything I'm saying, it just stems from the stuff I didn't like about the brand split initially. When they tried it the first time, and they kept it for a really long-ass time, almost a decade. To me, it ended when they started doing the Raw Super Show. And that, to me, was pretty much the end of the brand split, even if they didn't say it was. It'll be interesting to see what happens. At least I might actually have a reason to watch SmackDown now, especially if... if they put Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn and some of those guys exclusively on SmackDown, then it's like, all right, I've got a reason to watch SmackDown again, so that's nice. So, that's all I have for now. Just wanted to get that big fucking thing out of the way. This weekend, I'm going to be kind of busy this weekend because I've got a test to study for, and big certification. It's like, oh, yay, I get a, alphabet soup next to my name if I pass. Yay. But I'm going to be busy doing that, but I hope to get another video up on Sunday doing my classic match review of an old WCW match. And I'll just leave it at that. But I wanted to do another classic match review, and we're going to go into the WCW archives for one. I already said in a previous video that it was going to be a DDP versus Randy Savage match. I just didn't say which one. But you'll find out this Sunday. But yeah, that is all I have for now. Hope you all are having a good week, better week than me, I hope. And hopefully you all have good plans for Memorial Day weekend. It's going to be a blast. But until then, I will see you all later.